So journal articles are really difficult to read. They're often written in tough language that you can't really understand. So in this video, I'm going to give you some tips on how to read a journal article to get the best understanding out of it as possible. Okay, my first tip on how to read a journal article is to just read the abstract first and then pause at the end of the abstract and think, is this journal article the right journal article for me? That's because an abstract is around about a 200 to 300 word piece at the beginning of a journal article that summarizes what the journal article is going to be about. It's a bit like a trailer to a movie. When you watch a trailer to a movie, you get to the end of the trailer and it might have been a 1 minute long trailer, and you can assess, do I really want to go and watch this movie, or is this not the movie for me? So use the abstract strategically to find out, do I need to read this journal article, or is it not quite a right fit? Okay, my second tip is to stop reading any articles if you have no idea what they're about. If you get to choose between a bunch of different journal articles, say you're writing an essay and you found 7 different journal articles on the same topic, if there's one that you just don't understand, put it aside and find one that's easier to understand. A general rule for my students is it's good to understand about 50 to 70% of the article. You might not understand the whole article, but get to the end of each paragraph and pause and think, do I get the general idea of what was said in this paragraph? Maybe you didn't understand 1 or 2 phrases or 1 or 2 difficult words, but do you get the general gist of what was said? If you're not getting the general idea of the journal article and it's just completely confusing you, put it aside and find an easier to read journal article or even a textbook if you're allowed to use textbooks. The third tip is to scan through the entire journal article before reading it in more depth. A journal article usually has a very predictable structure. It has an abstract, an introduction, a literature review, a methodology, a findings section, and a discussion at the end. Now, each of those sections has a different purpose. So scan through it and see if you can find the key points that you're looking for. So step 4, read the literature review as if it's a mini essay. Literature reviews summarize previous research into a topic. It's a little bit like the author's own mini essay into the key points or the key ideas that are important in the topic that they're writing about. So read through their literature review as if it's their mini essay and see if you can pick out key points from the literature review that you can use in your own essay. Just on that point, make sure that you paraphrase anything that you write in your essay because you don't want to get caught for plagiarism. Okay, step 5. Skip the methodology if you don't need to read it. So most journal articles involve a study of some kind, and that's where the methodology comes in. It explains how the study was conducted. Now have a think. Do you need to know how the study was conducted if all you want to find is the findings? Sometimes, say if you're a grad student or if you're doing a course on methodologies, it is important to read the methodology section. But say it's your first year of university and you're just using journal articles to write an essay and all you need is the key findings from the journal article. Maybe you don't actually need to read the methodology section. Maybe you can skip it and go straight to the findings section below. Step 6, jump to the conclusion. Reading the conclusion, maybe even before you read the rest of the journal article, can be useful in understanding what the key findings of the journal article are. In fact, if you only need to find the key findings of the journal article, you may be able to find when you read the conclusion that it sums up the key findings in a nice, simple paragraph for you. That's because a conclusion, just like the conclusion to your essays, will usually summarize the key points of the essay or the journal article. So skip to that conclusion and read it and find out whether or not you can find out the key findings just by reading the conclusion alone. Okay, and step 7. If you have to read the journal article for class, take notes even if you don't understand it. Earlier I said, if you don't understand a journal article, put it aside and find a new one. Well, if you've been given a journal article and told you have to read this specific journal article, there are some steps that you can take. So for example, if you're expected to go to your next seminar and talk about the journal article that you've been assigned, take some notes on what you think you understand of the journal article, acknowledging that you may be wrong, and some points on why you didn't fully understand it. For example, you could write down some key words that you didn't understand. Oftentimes, my undergraduate students will come to class and I've assigned them a journal article and they'll say, I don't actually understand what discourse means. It's a very common word in academia that is hard to understand. So outline some of those key words. So when you come to class and your teacher says, what did you learn from this journal article, or what did you understand from it? You don't sit there and say, I didn't understand it, so I didn't come prepared. Instead, you can turn up to class and say, this is what I think I understood, but I'm not really sure and I found it difficult to read. There's nothing more annoying than a student coming to class who hasn't come prepared with questions and points to talk about. So even if you don't understand the journal article, try to write down a few points about what you think it may be about and some key points that you can point to say, this is where I got confused. Can we talk about what this point means? Okay, that was a lot. So let's sum up those 7 points. Number 1, read the abstract. That's the first 200 to 300 words, and think of it a bit like a movie trailer. It'll tell you whether or not the journal article is worth reading. Number 2, if you've read through the abstract and it wasn't useful to you, then maybe it's time to get a new journal article that will be more useful to you. Number 3, scan through the sections of the journal article and see if you can find the section that'll provide you the key information that you need rather than reading the entire piece. Number 4, think of the literature review as a mini essay on key points in the topic, and when you read through the literature review, have a think about whether there are any key points in there that you can use for your own essay. Number 5, skip the methodology unless the methodology is important to you. Usually it'll be only useful for students who are doing methodology courses or students in grad school. Number 6, jump to the conclusion. If you just read the conclusion, usually there's a good summary of all of the key points in that little section at the end, so you don't have to read the whole bit. You can pick up the key findings just in the conclusion. And number 7, if you have to read the article for class, take notes even if you don't understand it. Write down any points about what you think the article might be about and any points where you think you got a little bit confused and you would like more clarification from either your teacher or your classmates. Now guys, obviously reading journal articles is different in every different situation and every different subject. So these are some general points, but remember that it all depends upon the situation and what key information that you need to get out of the journal article. So think critically and think about, why is it that I've been assigned this journal article? Is it to read the methodology, or is it to just pick out the key findings of the article? This video is part of a mini series on how to conduct research at university, so like and subscribe and follow this whole playlist for more helpful tips and tricks on how to conduct research and do referencing at university.